Yo guys, welcome back to another Danmachi Memoria Freese video. Okay, so it's another Monday, which means it's another tier list. Before we get into it, I'm going to say right now, the tier list grades units based on preference to content other than wargame. So it takes wargame value into consideration. It's just not the primary value source because it's extremely difficult to make a tier list for units including both Record Buster and wargame, as well as 7th zone and things like that. So what we've done is we've taken wargame as an entirely separate thing and taken it not fully out of the equation. Value in wargame is still going to be considered, but it's not as high a priority as the other game modes. In saying that, it's important to note that these are opinion based tier lists, so if you do disagree, just drop down in the comment section, explain your opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but this is what I've come up with together with the advice of a lot of very knowledgeable individuals that I have in my Discord, which by the way, link is in the description. And in saying that, I have come up with my own system by which I take a unit and then measure its qualitative values in a quantitative method and then scale it, and that's how I basically try to tier them and take as much biasness out of it as possible. Anyway, these tier lists have been doing fantastic. I thank you so much, you guys, for the views, watch time, likes. If you do enjoy this video, please don't be shy, please drop a like. I just hit 1,000 subscribers. I'd like to keep growing, and I appreciate everyone that helped me get here, and I hope you stay with me. Anyway, getting into tier list. Okay, so usually I skip D rank for the most part, but I'm gonna go over some honorable mentions. The Aisha and the Chigusa. The Chigusa could be considered an okay sack unit, but she doesn't actually provide enough in any other area to even bump her up to C tier. Whereas the Aisha, she has no utility, but her stats are okay. So I would assume, obviously I don't have her MLB, so I can't speak from practice. She's a little bit older now. Her stats are not up to par with everyone else's. They're not bad, but they're not up to par with all of the current strength units. She has some self buffs, but even the self buffs are a little bit dated. I don't think just having dated damage and stats, even though they are okay, would be enough to put her into C tier, which is why they're in D tier. Oh, excuse my my phone buzzing. Coming up to C tier now. Keep in mind, guys, these are not sorted from left to right in terms of who's the best within the tier. It's literally just sectioned into tiers, so don't take the fact that Philvis is in the front as she's the best C tier unit. I'm gonna go through a few here now. The Daphne has she has okay utility. No, the damage is not so much, but she has okay utility. It's kind of subpar now because I wouldn't say she's that old, but she actually is kind of getting going in that direction. So she pretty much is like an okay thunder unit if you have her, nothing special. The same can be said for the rest of these units. Again, we have the welfare fencer here. Now welfare, obviously she's a these welfare units, I'm glad that they're not sitting in D tier. Me and Fencer have a love-hate relationship. Like at the time, I basically didn't have any other unit that removed strength and magic buffs, so I put everything I had into her, and then even max ascended her like an idiot to hope that she would do a bit of damage, and she still did nothing. But she has good utility, a good amount of support to sit within a mono thunder team and do what she needs to do, except for damage, of course. Like she has like mediocre damage, but other than that, for a welfare unit, she provides a decent amount of support, especially for a mono thunder team. Cassandra is sitting in the same boat as the Daphne here, given that they are basically were released as a pair. She has a wider spectrum of utility, less damage than Daphne, but the spectrum of utility that she has is subpar to what we would say is the standard for today's units. Like I said, even though when they came out, they're not actually that old. I'm not sure when they came out, but they're not as old as they should be for where they're ranked currently. Like the power creep is just ridiculous in this game anyway. And then we have Philvis. Philvis is here one reason and one reason only. She is a dual sack unit for Thunder element resistance debuff. Now I'm going to go into the game. I'm going to show you in case you weren't aware. If I can find it here. And bring up the game. That's not the game. Yes, okay, right. So Philvis, where are you? Don't worry about the stats. She's, for anything else other than a sack unit, she's trash. But she provides, for single target, she has a 40% elemental resistance debuff. Now she had minus 40% way before it became like, you know, physical Alice, you know, and Wind Finn and everything came out. So she was there, man. She was there for the Thunder sack unit if you had her, especially for Record Buster. Minus 40% is crazy. But she also has a minus 30% Thunder resistance for AOE in case you don't have a Thunder Argonaut or anything like that. So just as a sack unit alone, she's very good for both single target and AOE, and just having that variability, is that a word? We'll just say variety. We'll stick to variety. You know, helping both AOE and single target as a sack unit, you know, is enough to put her in C tier for the very least. I'm gonna go back to the tier list. There we go. Right. Now, the problem I have here, if you'll notice, there is nothing in B tier. The problem I have here is that none of the C tier units I would consider good enough to bump up to B tier. Now you've got to think, like, anything in B tier has to provide more damage and utility, or like so say if you were to scale it, right, if they provide both damage and utility, they both have to be of a more exceptional level than what you would see in C tier. Or if they provide just damage or just utility, it would need to be of a much more exceptional level compared to C tier. And unfortunately there just are no C tier units that deserve to be bumped up to B tier. So basically we're at a point where in Thunder, B tier units don't exist. So we're going to jump straight up to A tier. Now I know this is where a lot of people are going to be like, wait, what's going on? And we're going to start from the end. Now Archer, well, I won't say, like, Archer came out at the beginning of the year with the Goblin Slayer collab unit, so a lot of you probably won't have her. But in saying that, this Archer has good team utility, good AOE damage, and surprisingly a good amount of single target damage, even though she has a super modifier on her AOE damage. She also has a percentage modifier on her single target damage, which, if I remember correctly, it runs alongside Dex. What we're gonna, oh yeah, I'll just jump in the game and we'll actually have a look so I can make sure that I'm getting that correct. Let's drop Philvis out of the way. Sorry, I'm working from two monitors and windows are all over the place. I should probably get a bit better. So you know what? While we're here, we'll give her a complete overlook, because if anything, arguably she could be the unit that would probably drop down to B tier, but it's arguable, you know. Her SA is great. Physical resist and thunder resist minus 30%. Now, although we have a unit that does that with a regular skill, when she came out, we did not have that, so that was exceptional. But even now, as an AOE SA, that's still really good, you know, because we still don't have that, you know. Well, we do now with the current banners, but considering the damage that she puts out as well, she does deserve to be here. So allies, dex, thunder, and attack damage. Allies, dex, and thunder attack damage plus 60%, and self thunder and dex plus 60%. And then skill 2 increases her own physical attack by 60%. Now, she is one of those units that takes a longer time to set up. Like, she has that additional turn to set herself up to be doing the optimal amount of damage that she needs to do from the beginning. But the buffs are not anything to laugh at. Like, buffing her own strength by 60%, amazing. The 30% element buff used to be the standard. I wouldn't say it's fallen off just yet. Like, we're being spoiled a little bit with some of the celebration units, but I would still say that 30% is still the standard for a self buff. Not including the current banner that's just come out. We are being spoiled, but that's because these banners are supposed to tempt you into summoning, given that we have celebrations coming up soon. If you're watching this at a later date, this was recorded in October 2020, and basically Halloween, Christmas, New Year's, collab banner, they're all coming. And then we have skill 3. She has that 30%. The 30% damage modifier is what puts her in A tier and not S tier. We're having units now that have that percentage modifier, but it's 40%, but it does scale with dex, which is amazing, which means she's going to get that additional 30%, sorry, 60% possibly, given that you get the dex buff from an assist and herself. And then obviously it being dex, it's got an ultra crit rate, so she's going to crit as well, so she puts out a substantial amount of damage. It's just she has poor counters. But let's head back to the tier list, shall we? The rest of the tier list now. Fina is here because I value defensive buffs less than I value offensive buffs. And while she does provide a lot of defensive utility, she also removes strength and magic buff on a single target, skill 3. She doesn't sort of stand out as much as, say, the Thunder Argonaut does when he arrived at the same time as her. We have the new the new Banner Thunder Twins both here. They're basically designed to be run side by side. Neither one of them, I would say, is better than the other, although I can't remember which one of them does outdo. This is where it gets a little bit shady because they're both amazing and their stats are exceptional, but who is it that has the super AOE fire? So I would value elemental debuffs more than I would physical or magical debuffs because they work with a more variety of teams. If you say need to use this unit as a sack unit, then you have the element, so element debuff, so you can use either strength or magic, whereas using a type debuff sort of limits you to that specific damage type, say strength magic. So it's not this one. Okay, this is this is why I put them both. Sorry, I didn't show you on the screen, but I just checked. Basically, she has an elemental debuff, elemental resistance debuff of 35%, whereas she has a physical resistance debuff of 30%. They both buff their strength and element damage by 60%, but she has a super modifier on her AoE. I hope you're following the mouse here because I can never tell them apart. I know the long-haired one has a super modifier. That's what keeps her in A tier, whereas the short-haired one has the 35% element resistance debuff. And I'm sorry if I triggered you by calling them that, but I know I'm going to mix their names up, so I just don't want to do that. And then finally we have the most questionable one in this tier, which probably will be Priestess, but she provides so much utility, she kind of deserves to be here. She has an SA gauge charge, she has a strength and she has a strength and magic debuff. She has a regen, she has a buff and debuff extension, and she also does a moderately higher amount of damage compared to Haruhime. So although she has her utility is scaled down compared to Haruhime, she does more damage, which sort of balances her out, which I think makes her deserve to be in A tier. Arguably, the guys I got advice from that helped me put this list together in Discord sort of thought that she belonged in S tier, but it's getting to that point now where I think if her damage was higher than it is, then yeah, I would have put her in S tier, but because she already provides a major amount of utility. But then we come up to S tier. Now, if you didn't know this, Lifia just hits so damn hard. It's like every other RB unit that's come. She just provides so much damage and her kit is so well put together, you cannot put her anywhere but S tier. And then alongside her, we have the Thunder Argonaut. So much utility. Now, I know I said I value offensive buffs and debuffs over defensive ones, but he provides a debuff of type and element resistance, strength, physical resist, magic resist, and thunder resistance debuff in one skill. He self buffs. I need to check his kit. I'm going to take you with me this time, not like last time. Let's look at the Thunder Argo, shall we? He is such a crazy good unit. It came out just before Anniversary. It was such a bait banner, but it sort of paid off if you did summon because he is great. And we come to so his skill 1 is a defensive buff, physical resist, magic resist plus 30%, but also a self strength, agility, and thunder damage buff, which is great. 40%. It is not the level that we are seeing from these newer units of 60, but 40% puts him between the older units and the newer unit. And then he has a super modifier on his skill 2 that lowers physical resist, magic resist, thunder resist for 3 turns. He doesn't have he doesn't have the percentage modifier that most units would on their skill 3 now. but he does have an ultra crit rate and he does extend debuffs by 2 turns, so there's a major amount of utility on there. His stats are amazing and he does do a good amount of damage, enough for me to consider him to be S tier. I'm not going to go over the Lithia too much because she literally just came out, so you guys should actually be aware of what she does anyway. But in saying that, I know I went a little bit quickly, but I wanted to make sure this video wasn't 20 minutes long like the others. I hope you did enjoy the video. Please make sure to drop a like if you did. Subscribe if you're not. Make sure to follow me on social media. Well, you don't have to follow me, but social media links will be in the description below. And as always, guys, I love you, and I'll catch you later.
Feuerfolter!